Hey guys, it's Vincent with vascotoys, and today I'm gonna do something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. Give you a tour of my workshop, which is a 16 by 9 foot shed that I have in my backyard, and this is where I do all of my diorama work. I can't wait to show you.
Vascotoys, action figure, dioramas, and props.
So I actually inherited this shed. I didn't build it from the person that owned my home before I bought it, and it was awesome because I thought maybe the shed would work for my purposes, and then I really got excited when I found out that it was already wired for electricity, which took a lot of what I would have needed to do out of it. Alright guys, so we're inside the workshop now. I'm going to kind of do a walk around, tell you about the workshop. But first thing is that this is definitely a work in progress. I've gotten it to a point where it's like functional, and there's a lot of nice to have things that I want to do in the future. So hopefully in the future I'll be able to do those things, and we'll have other update videos for you about how the workshop has turned out. But for right now, let's just take a look at the current state. You'll notice there are some parts that are a little rougher. Like I said, there's some things I want to do, maybe put some actual flooring down, put some plywood up on the walls to cover up some of the insulation foam that I have, those kinds of things. But let's take a look. So the most recent thing that I actually did in here was just put up this pegboard wall, which is one of several that I have. I love pegboards. I love being able to see the things that I have. So this one has like my heat gun, one of my glue guns, some of my shifting lands tools. This is the circle cutting tool. This is a drywall T-square that I use a lot on my bigger projects. I love just having it there. Have a fire hydrant for safety because I have a couple 3D printers in here. And so that's kind of how I'm using it right now. And this is kind of a rough wall, but it covers up the pink, so it's good enough for me. Another quick thing, just real quick. This is kind of like a wall where anytime I get stickers from one of my friends who's a dio builder, like High School Creations, Terraformer, Diorama Creators, or like this 3D printing service that I bought stuff from, I like to kind of put my stickers up here. So I'm going to kind of try to do that. I do have one for DJ's dioramas that I need to get up here as well. But this is kind of where I'm going to keep all those types of things. So after that, it's kind of the main workbench area, and there's a lot going on here, so I'm going to try not to bore you guys. But this is my first printer that I ever had, my Kingroon KP3, and it has an EasyFlex bed on it, which really I think is a great upgrade. And this is from, it's this company here, I think it's V3D. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but they're awesome. And it's not hooked up right now because haven't been using this one in particular, but I'll get it up soon. And This one I use mostly from like my smaller 3D printed parts because I have another printer we'll look at that's much bigger. I've got a little storage here for my 3D printing stuff, so some extra Bowden tubes and just some extra nozzles and stuff, cleaning products for the printer, all that. This is somewhat of a mess, but I have like 2 shelving units that I put in that are just for my flat supply. So some styrene sheeting, some like corrugated cardboard, and balsa wood, basswood, things like that I just put here so that I can easily grab. I probably should have organized it first, but it is what it is. Then we move to one of the most important tools in the workshop, which is my Proxxon hot wire foam cutting table that I love. And I actually just got this year for Christmas, my wife got me a foot pedal, so I can actually turn this thing on and then use the foot pedal to turn it on and off, which makes it really, really easy to do some more complex kind of cuts. And I have a shifting lands guide, one of the regular guides, as an enhancement for this piece of equipment as well. Then I've got a series of things up on the pegboard. So we have some pliers, T-square type stuff. I have eyewear, I have protective respirators. I have one that I use for sanding, one that I use when I'm spray painting or using the hot wire foam cutter. I also have this position near the window because what I usually do just to stay as safe as possible is I wear the mask and then I have a fan under here that I'll set up. And I'll open the window, so I have the mask on, the fan on, blowing out the window, so I get as little fumes as possible coming off of the XPS foam on the foam cutting table. Just a little way I try to keep myself a little more safe. So this one I would use if I'm using, if I'm sanding things. Then I have some markers, some odds and ends here. There's like X-Acto knife blades in here. There's some basswood and dowels in here. A little bit of glue, sewing needles. Tapes, glue guns here, some of my wire bristle brushes. This is the old Proxxon guard. I keep it just in case. There's some times where it's actually easier for me to use that than the shifting lands guard, so I keep it right there. This is a little sign that my dad made me on a laser cutter, so I just keep it there because I think it looks cool. This is my glue bin. So I have these removable bins for certain things where I put like paints and stuff in the pegboards, and I have that up there. This is one of the coolest things I have in the shop, I think. It's a Dremel, and it's battery powered, but it's a Ryobi, and it's super, super strong. This was the original Dremel I had, which was good, but this thing, I'll turn it on real quick so you guys can hear. So you can adjust the power of it, and you can really ratchet this thing up. And that's just halfway. I've never put it all the way. So it's really good for when I'm like sanding 3D prints, or if I want to puncture like a hole in some sort of styrene, or even the foam sometimes. And then I have a bunch of accessories for the Dremels, just the Dremel kit. A lot of hand tools here. I also have a bunch of box cutters that I have here. These are the ones that I've used that are not too dull where I can't use them anymore, so I've used them once or twice, and they're still good. I do have a sharpener, and I have some other things up here. Like this is my miter box, and my miter box knife is actually behind it on the pegboard. X-Acto knives, all that kind of stuff are in here, just the hand tools. Then I have like essentially this corner is basically like my paint corner. So I have a bunch of my acrylic paints up here. Most of the bigger sized ones that I get for colors I frequently use, like black, white, orange. Then some smaller ones, couple palettes. A lot of the stuff here, like I even have some colors that didn't fit in the bins, green, browns, those kind of things, Liquitex, all that stuff. Some of my blended turf, sand, all that stuff kind of stays here. I have a sifter that I got at like the dollar store up here. And then this is actually a really cool family heirloom that I don't use at all for diorama making, but this was my great grandfather's tool, and it's very, very old. And so it's just something that I think is cool to have out here because he used to use this to make things, and even though I'm not using it to make things, it's kind of just a cool thing to have in the space that I do make things. So I have that up there. I have a bunch of screwdrivers. I rarely ever use them, but they're there in case I need them. Some clamps. And then this is a shelf that I made and got lucky, honestly. I didn't measure a whole lot, and it actually works perfectly where I can have 2 deep of these acrylic paints that I buy. Usually Anita's acrylic paints. Spider-Man's down over here. So then I also have this TV here, which I use when, you know, sometimes I'm out here. Sometimes I'll watch some of the sports that I like to enjoy. Like I'm a huge Mets fan, so I'll put the Mets games on, or I'll put on some music, or maybe even sometimes like shows and stuff, because I have Wi-Fi in the shop. I'll show you guys that. So I can just kind of like use that to enjoy things. Then I have, you're going to see, this is where the unfinished part of the shed really comes out. I do have this, this is like a draw unit kind of thing, where I have a bunch of different things in here. So I have magnets in here. I've got my glue sticks sitting on top. I have some like popsicle sticks in here. A lot of little pieces that I'll use, like these are the rivets I used on my most recent Dio build, which I'll link to for you guys, my airplane cargo hold. Some little like wood pieces that I picked up over the years that I might need. Other things as well, like some of my 3D printed parts. So this is where I keep all my like vascotoys, little logoed pieces that I usually put on my dioramas. They're in there as well, and just some of my lights. These are balloon lights in here, so I have a bunch of those. And just all those kinds of smaller items are in here just for me to easily get. And I might eventually get a second one once I actually expand the wall and put up actual like plywood or something on this. Then I've got like my polyurethane, which I use to seal dioramas, and some other things, WD-40, all that kind of stuff. Then we get over here. Now this is the section that I'm using a lot lately and having a lot of fun with. So I bought this Ender 3. This is an Ender 3 V2. And I bought this on Black Friday, and it's August as of the time we're shooting this, so like approaching a year ago. At first, it took me kind of a while to get this thing dialed in properly to where it was printing reliably, and really the biggest difference maker was this magnetic. It's a Flex, just like I have on my other printer. It's from the same company. It's a Flex magnetic bed that honestly just makes my print quality so much better than it was on the regular glass bed that came with this from Creality. And so this is something that I've been using a lot more. It's a much bigger bed. This is 220, I think 235 by 235, something like that. The other one is 180 by 180, so I can make a lot bigger windows and doors and just bigger pieces for my dials now. So I'm loving that. And then this side of the workshop is actually dual purpose. So I have this bench that my father-in-law and I made together, and I have some pictures I'll show of the process that you guys can see. But the reason I wanted this was because I wanted like what I call like a studio table. So when I'm done with a dio usually, and it depends on the size, I will photograph it up here. And when I do ACBA, I usually do the setups up here. That's why I have these backdrops that we have for sale up here as well. So that's the top portion. I kind of just use this for photography. And then there's one shelf that's the same depth from the wall, where I have a bunch of odds and ends, and it's honestly a mess right now, but I keep like all my lighting equipment for ACBAs in here. All of my old 3D print actually all my print failures I keep, they're all in here. I'll show you guys. It's somewhat of a mess, but so I keep all of these. So I have like just some gnarly looking stuff. Like this was a really bad clog that I had recently, but I keep it because I have a feeling that one day I will need to do some sort of like destroyed building or something, and I feel like this stuff could really come in handy for when that happens, and that's a way of me not wasting the filament. So someday, this is like a rainy day kind of box, I'll be able to use that. Then I've got my AC unit, which is the real MVP of this shop, especially in the summer months in South Carolina. This thing is just been a champ for me ever since I got it. and just some other things. I actually have a couple of bins of scrap foam because it's really important to keep your scraps if you have space. So these are both just full of scraps. So these are the smaller scraps, and then these are some of the bigger scraps that are not super huge. And so when I'm making, especially rubble and things like that, I'll just come in here because I know I have a bunch of the foam, and this is built up the almost 4 years that I've been making diorama, so it's been quite a while. Then up here is where I have all the larger pieces of foam that the shed has 2 lofts. So one of the lofts, the one you're looking at, is where I keep all my foam. So this is all my 2-inch foam. This is a 1/2-inch piece on the bottom, a really big 1/2-inch piece, like the 4x8s that you can get. And then on top of that, I have a bunch of different foam cuts that I've done from Dio builds of varying sizes. I have the 1-inch foam, which is the most common foam size that I'm using. And I even have some that are the 2x2s that I typically buy for commissions. So I probably, and the nice thing is if I do get a 4x8, I can fit almost the entire thing up here. I do have to trim it a little bit. So that's where I keep all my foam. So it's up out of my way, out of my working space. And I know what I have. I can look at it pretty easily. That's pretty much it, guys, for right now. I've really enjoyed this space. Like, I really feel fortunate to have this. And I'm honestly thank the guy that built this shed. I thank, the fact that he put electricity in here. And so there was a lot of really cool stuff that he did with this that made it a really kind of an ideal spot for me to be in. So I hope you guys like the shed. And if you have any comments or like ideas of how I could enhance it, leave them in the comment below section for us, and we'll check that out. Okay, so one thing I forgot to mention in the last clip, and I want to explain because I think some of you might be wondering or have noticed how ridiculously messy the ceiling in particular looks and some of the insulation. So there's a good enough reason for that. First of all, I want to put like plywood up so you don't see any of that. But I actually did insulate this shed the week before my second child was born, and I was kind of like at a crunch for time. So it was one of those like good enough kind of situations where I knew I was going to cover it eventually. And so I probably should have just done spray insulation in here, but in the spirit of like using the material that I use to make the dials, which is actually insulation foam, I cut out individual pieces of that foam, and then you can kind of see, so like there was a section of the foam, and then I had to use spray insulation to make sure that I enclosed those parts where the gaps were, to make sure that it was fully insulated. So I hate the way this looks, and hopefully one day I'll be able to clear it up. But like I said, at this particular time, it's functional. When I put the AC on in the summer, it keeps it cool in here, and when I put the heat on in the winter, it keeps it warm in here. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I don't have a lot of extra time and the time that I do have will go to dio making after family and job and all that kind of stuff. So that's why it looks the way it does. Thanks everyone for coming on this tour of my workshop where I create all my diorama projects. I appreciate everyone who watches the videos. I appreciate anyone who's commissioned a diorama, follows me on social, or does anything that supports my hobby, and all of that support does contribute to things like enhancing the workshop. And so thank you for anyone that's doing those things. If you guys like the video, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're going to continue to put out diorama related content, and we appreciate you watching. We'll see you in the next episode.